Hello, everyone. For those of you just signing on, welcome. We will get started in a few minutes. I see there are still people joining. Hello again, everyone. We're just going to wait one more minute and then we will get started. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. David Glassner, Superintendent of Shaker City School District. It is great to be with you this afternoon, and I'll be providing a facilities update. Just a couple of notes before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. That way we can share the information that is being presented with folks who were unable to join us live for this webinar. Also, like last time, if you joined the webinar last time, I will be starting just by sharing some information and some updates about where we are now in our the implementation of our facilities plan. And then I will open up the chat feature so that you can ask questions or share other thoughts and ideas. So that'll happen in the next few minutes after I share some information. So that I will get started. This slide deck that I'm sharing is very similar to the one that we will be sharing with the Board of Education at our Board of Education meeting this evening. And if you have been in a presentation with me in the past couple of months, you have probably seen this slide before. Just a reminder that all the information that we're sharing is tentative and subject to change. I am providing the most up-to-date information that we have. We also know and have certainly learned that information changes and evolves, and as a result, our plans have to change and evolve as well. So thank you very much. This is a timeline that we have shared in the past, and I wanted to just start here just kind of as a reminder of the different decision points that we will be facing over the next few months as we prepare for the next school year. Just a reminder, we will be vacating Woodbury, the Woodbury School Building, at the end of this academic year, which means our fourth graders will stay in their elementary schools for fifth grade. So our elementary buildings will now become K-5 elementary buildings, or pre-K-5, I should say. And our sixth graders will be moving to the middle school. We'll be using the middle school site as swing space, and that will become a 6 to 8 facility while Woodbury is being renovated. So you'll see that there are a number of different items on this timeline. I am not going to read through this line by line, but I did want to just let everyone know that up until this point, we have so far been pretty successful in meeting the timelines and the deadlines that are listed in this table. So for example, we recently released start and end times for next school year. We're in the process of finalizing the K-5 and 6 to 8 schedule. We have been moving forward with modular classrooms, and I'll talk a little more about that in a few minutes. There's been some information that we've already shared related to curricular and programming decisions, like exhibition, for example. That's something that we shared last week. And there's more. I could keep going down the list, but I think you will see that we remain on schedule as it relates to this timeline. So I want to talk just for a couple of minutes kind of about the construction work, or at least the work that's happening behind the scenes to prepare for the renovation and construction work. We published a request for qualifications in RFQ for an architecture and design firm last Friday, February 9th. That RFQ will remain open for a few weeks. Firms have the opportunity both to apply, but also there's a process by which they can ask questions and become more familiar with the project if they choose prior to submitting an application. We do expect to have an architect selected by the end of April. We will also be posting an RFQ for a construction firm towards the end of this month, and we expect to have a construction manager at risk selected by the end of May. A lot of different groups and individuals provided input and feedback on that RFQ for the architecture firm. We expect we will have a similar process for the construction firm, so thank you. Those folks include, for example, our Facilities Advisory Committee. We are working with a consultant who has expertise in supplier diversity, so she also helped provide input and feedback, in addition to other stakeholders and stakeholder groups. So again, we appreciate everyone's input in this process thus far. So I want to just talk a little bit about classroom learning spaces. You've heard me talk about modular classrooms in the past. We are moving forward with installing modular classrooms at Shaker Heights Middle School for next school year. Those modular classrooms will provide additional learning spaces for our students because we will have sixth graders on the site now. And so we know, or for next year, and so we know we're going to need additional space. We're finalizing the location of where those modular classrooms will be installed. Generally speaking, modular classrooms are very nice. They come with their own HVAC, air conditioning, heating systems, and are generally, and in a lot of cases, they can be better than the unrenovated spaces that students or teachers are leaving. I know one question we've gotten about the modular classrooms is whether or not they will include restrooms. It looks at this point like some of the modular classrooms will include restrooms, and some of them will not because they'll be close enough to the actual building so that we will not need to include restrooms in some of them, but some of them will. Fernway, I know that another question we've gotten is related to Fernway, accommodating fifth grade at Fernway until an addition is built on Fernway. We expect that for next school year, we will be able to utilize existing learning spaces to accommodate fifth graders at Fernway. Based on the preliminary construction schedules that have been developed thus far, we also expect that the addition for Fernway will be built relatively early on in the construction process, as early potentially as next summer. And so that is also factoring into our decision as it relates to learning spaces at Fernway. As the timeline I shared showed a couple of minutes ago, we do expect that plans for other or all learning spaces will be finalized by the end of March. So this is really the decisions that relate to which grade level, classroom, subject area, and teacher or staff member will be located in what spaces. We know that that has an impact on our ability to prepare for next year, and so we want to make sure we do that, have those decisions made in a timely manner. Somewhat relatedly, we are in the process of forming a district committee that will focus specifically on all the logistics and details required to plan for the movement of learning spaces. This is, I imagine this to be kind of a packing and moving committee because there are so many different details, whether that is related to technology, boxes, storing things, how to make sure that everything gets to its proper destination. So there are a lot of very important details to work through, and this committee is going to help us do so. As I know I mentioned this at the beginning, that information is tentative. Of course, I want to highlight as it relates to spaces and it's related to staffing, we know that there will be some changes that are made between now and the beginning of the school year. So we will make as many decisions as possible now by the end of March. And there are still things that could potentially change between now and the end of the school year, and we will be prepared if that takes place. So I've talked about this a little before, a little bit in the past, just kind of some of the ways that we're getting input and feedback in the planning process. We have expanded our primary years program planning team. That group has already been pretty inclusive, and we're continuing to make it more inclusive, identifying individuals, teachers, expert people who have expertise in certain areas, who are helping to provide input and feedback in the many different curricular and programming decisions that need to be made at the primary years program. Middle years administrators, we announced the middle years administration for next year a couple of weeks ago. Those folks have begun meeting with middle school building leadership team members, and also will be meeting with additional teacher teams over the coming weeks and months. As we move kind of from the phase of planning, which was really focused on scheduling and logistic details and some of the more programmatic decisions and planning that needs to take place. We also expect, as you can see here, for more middle school staff and faculty to be part of that process. Recently, the superintendent's leadership team had an opportunity to visit Woodbury. It was great to see all of the learning in action. As part of our visit, we had the opportunity to meet with teachers and students and talk to them about any questions they have, hopes that they have, opportunities that we have as we plan for this transition. So I want to thank everybody who participated in that very worthwhile visit. We are also, I know another question that we've gotten is related to professional learning and support. We want to make sure our faculty and staff have the support they need to be prepared for the beginning of next school year. We have started drafting a professional learning plan, and we're in the process of getting feedback and input on that plan. We certainly want to use the remaining time that we have left in this school year, as well as any opportunities we have over the summer and at the beginning of next school year, to make sure our staff and faculty have opportunity to collaborate and get the support they need. So I want to talk a little bit about some curricular decisions that we have made. And then in the next slide, I will talk about some curricular decisions that we are in the process of making. And this may be a review for many people on this webinar, but just in case, we have made the decision that fifth grade classrooms will use a departmentalized model for the 24-25 school year. For those of you with fifth graders currently in our school district or who have had fifth graders in the past, this is probably a model that you are familiar with. The departmentalized model means that there are teachers who teach specific subject areas, which is in contrast to an elementary model where we typically have one general education teacher who teaches all of the core subject areas throughout the year. I will say, just to be clear, we will have, it depends on the school and the enrollment and the number of fifth grade sections. There may be teachers who teach multiple subjects. So we could have a teacher who teaches, let's say, language and literature and individuals and societies, English, language arts, and social studies. And when we have a teacher who teaches math and science, that may happen in some buildings. It really depends on enrollment and school and fifth grade sections. As I mentioned earlier, we've made a decision around exhibition. So exhibition, which is the culmination, exhibition is meant to be the culminating project or capstone project of the primary years program, the IB primary years program. So that will take place in fifth grade. Current fourth grade students, that means that current fourth grade students will complete the PYP exhibition as fifth grade students next school year. Current fourth grade students will have the opportunity to participate in a capstone fourth grade project this year, since I know they were looking forward to exhibition this year. They will get a chance to do a different kind of project in preparation for exhibition next year. Lastly, we've shared start and end times for next school year with our community already. Some of the curricular decisions that are in process. I know we've gotten a lot of questions about music programming. So we are looking at music programming in grades 5 through 8. And as you can imagine, and the reason we included those grade levels together here, the decisions that we make, for example, as it relates to 5th grade music, do have an impact on music programming in 6th grade and beyond. So we are trying to look at this from a whole picture perspective. We have been getting a great deal of input and feedback from our music department faculty on what is developmentally appropriate for students. We have also been reviewing programming and offering at other schools. Some of the things that we certainly have to consider as we make decisions moving forward include space considerations. So for those of you who have or have had children at the secondary level, you know that our music program requires quite a bit of space for practice purposes as well as performance and storage purposes. We also want to make sure that we are being intentional in terms of our staffing resources and scheduling. Both our staffing resources, we want to make sure that our music teachers are being used and are in places where they will have the most impact on student music learning and instruction in ways that are practical. And also scheduling, as I mentioned before, what happens in music in 5th grade, for example, has an impact not only on what happens in music in 6th grade and beyond, it also has an impact on what happens as it relates to other single subjects at the elementary level and other elementary schedule impacts. So it's a pretty complex decision, but we are working through a lot of these details as we speak. The other curricular decision that I want to highlight that we're currently in the process of making relates to world languages. We are working on incorporating Spanish into the PYP single subject schedule for 5th grade students. In some ways, similar to music, the decision or the scheduling as it relates to 5th grade Spanish also has an impact on other aspects of the 5th grade schedule and other aspects of the K-4 schedule. So that is something that we are working through again as we speak. I've highlighted some of this already, either today or in the past. There is a wide range of opportunities for different stakeholder groups to both get information and also engage in this process. We have many different meetings and opportunities for internal stakeholders, staff and faculty to provide input. That includes collective bargaining leadership, building leadership teams, staff meetings, and other opportunities. I think as many people are aware, we shared a staff survey for 2024-2025 placement preferences that also included opportunities for staff and faculty to raise questions, concerns, and ideas. We are engaging on an ongoing basis with our parent-teacher organization, with students, with our facilities advisory committee, which is made up of community stakeholders and others. We have opportunities like this, webinars where community members and others can join and ask questions. We regularly send out a weekly facilities update. If you have not been getting those, I encourage you to go to our updated facilities webpage, which is linked into the slide deck and which is accessible via shaker.org, our homepage. That includes FAQs, which are regularly being updated, and other easy to access information. So that concludes the information that I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we will open up the chat feature so that people can ask questions. I'd also like to welcome Kristen Cash, our communication specialist, to this webinar. For those of you who participated last time, Ms. Cash helps to moderate and facilitate the chat questions and comments just so we can try to keep up with them.
Great. Okay, well, while we, oh, never mind, there's a question in here already. This request is for circulating the PowerPoint deck. It is actually already posted to board docs or will be shortly. Is that correct, Dr.
That is correct. It's already posted on the board agenda, and we will be sharing this webinar via our facilities update. I'm not sure if in the past we've included a separate link to the slide deck. That's something we can look into if we haven't.
Yes, and the webinar will also be posted to the facilities webpage, so shaker.org/facilities plan. So we will always have the most current webinar posted there. So this question is about the current fifth grade students and how familiar they will be with modular classrooms prior to attending school next year. If you could speak a little bit to that.
Sure. I don't know yet if fifth grade students know that they will have modular classrooms next year, although that's something that we've certainly been talking about. We do have a number of different opportunities, both for fifth grade students and their families, to learn more about what their sixth grade experience will include. That includes some parent information events. I don't have those dates memorized. Ms. Cash may remember those. We will also have opportunities for students who are going to new buildings next year to go visit those spaces like we've done in the past. That'll happen later in the spring, most likely in May. We expect at that point that information will be shared with students around modular classrooms. The modular classrooms, just to be clear, will not be installed by May. We may have some pictures or videos or other things like that for students and families to get to see so that you can get a sense of what those modular classrooms will look like.
Yes, I pulled up the calendar so I don't get the dates wrong. Rising Grade 6 Information Night is on Thursday, March 7th, and Rising Grade 7 is on Tuesday, March 5th. So they are in the same week.
Thank you.
Um, So I'm going to move on to the next question. Can you discuss modulars in a little more detail, specifically safety and security for the outside, plus how students will be able to use the restroom and things like that when they're in the modulars?
Great question. So modular classrooms, maybe formerly were known as trailers. And if any adults in this webinar were familiar with modular classrooms maybe a few decades ago, modular classrooms of today are very different. They are installed, and although they're temporary in a sense, many school districts, once they install modular classrooms, do so knowing that they'll be using them for a longer period of time because they are very sturdy. They include air conditioning and heating. They include lighting. Where there are restrooms or other kind of water facilities, they include plumbing. So and overall, I know I've visited some in the past couple of years. They're very nice. In terms of safety and security, that is something that we have been talking about from the minute we started looking at modular classrooms. So just like when you're doing renovations or construction on permanent buildings, there are architects and designers who are part of installing the modular classrooms. So we've been talking with them about, placing the modular classrooms in ways that really prioritize safety and security. They will include, just like we have as part of our regular building, video cameras. We've been talking with our security team about the kind of security staffing we may need to help support the modular classrooms. We do expect that there will be sidewalks when necessary. If there need to be kind of sidewalks to get to the modular classrooms, I believe those will be covered so that when there's inclement weather, everybody can get there to their modular classrooms dry. So those are some of the things, generally speaking, when I've talked with folks who have been in modular classrooms, like I mentioned before, they often prefer the modular spaces to the unrenovated spaces that they may be leaving. Somewhat relatedly, I didn't mention this earlier, but in terms of who will be using the modular classrooms, we have not yet settled on that decision. I know I've talked about different models of how the modular classrooms might be used. So, for example, we may have sixth grade students or a team of sixth grade students who use the modular classrooms. That's where they spend the majority of their learning day. Or it could be a space where a specific subject is taught. Let's say art, for example, and this is not meant to indicate that this is the case, but if art were in modular classrooms, all students who take art would cycle into the modular spaces. We're looking at different options in terms of who actually utilizes the modular classrooms.
Actually addressed one of the questions that's in here.
Okay.
That's great. Can you give an idea of what kind of best case scenario of when Woodbury would be available for students to move back in, or when we'll have a better idea of what that'll look like?
Sure. If I have a chance, I may pull up a previous slide deck, although I may not be able to while doing this webinar. So Woodbury will be vacated for next academic year. During that academic year, we expect to be able to do some pre-renovation work at Woodbury, along with design for the renovated Woodbury building. We then expect construction and renovation to last through the next academic year, so the 25-26 school year. It is possible that Woodbury students could come back to Woodbury during the 26-27 school year, at some point during the 26-27 school year. We don't know yet. I would say at this point, that's probably the best case scenario. And again, if I have a chance, I know in the past I've shown a slide that kind of outlines that timeline in a little more detail. If I have a chance, I'll pull that up. But if not, we'll make sure that is included, I know, in one of our FAQs moving forward.
Can you talk a little bit, when the school schedules were announced, it was brought up that the elementary school instructional day is a little bit longer by about 20 minutes, I believe. Can you talk a little bit about that and the decision to do that and the impact that might have?
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the pieces of feedback that we heard related to our elementary schedule up until now was that that people would prefer to have elementary schools start earlier. So that is something that we took into account as we planned for next year. Now, like with everything, we rarely get feedback that is entirely universal, but generally speaking, we got more feedback from folks who preferred to have elementary schools start earlier. As we looked at school start and end times, we also wanted to make sure that we have enough time between the end of one day for certain grade levels and the end of the day for other grade levels. So enough time for our buses to get from their elementary routes to the middle school routes. We also feel that it's important to be able to maximize our instructional learning time. So that was definitely a factor into the start end times that we are planning for. And that is something that we're looking at also when we look at school schedules during the day, how students are actually spending their time during the hours that school is in session. We know that, for example, the length of the day also has an impact on single subject scheduling. So that is, so we would like to maximize the opportunities that students have in addition to their core subject areas, also with the other subjects that we offer.
Great, thank you. We have a question here about the language acquisition program. Currently, fifth graders take language carousel, and then in sixth grade, they select a language. Can you talk a little bit about language acquisition, where we are in the process, where we think we might be going, if that decision's been made yet, and if not, kind of when we expect that to be made?
Yes. So I alluded to this a little bit with Spanish. We do expect at this point that fifth grade students will take Spanish. We're working on making sure, that Spanish, kind of how that fits into the fifth grade schedule. And when I talked about it being part of the single subject rotation, other single subjects include art, for example, or PE. So that's what library. So those are the things that I'm referencing. We have not yet made a decision as it relates to sixth grade world language. So currently, fifth grade students have a carousel where they get to experience the different languages that we offer. And then in sixth grade, they choose a world language that they will take at least through 10th grade. That's part of the International Baccalaureate program. We have not yet decided whether sixth grade students moving forward will participate in that carousel or whether they will simply choose a language that they started in sixth grade like they do now. So that is something that we're still working on.
Okay, thank you. We have a question here about the impact the facilities changes now during the transition, and then also once the construction is completed, the impact that will have on accelerated learning. We know some students are bused from one school to another for some accelerated courses. What will the impact of some of these changes have on that?
It's something that in terms of accelerated, students who are accelerated, meaning they are taking courses that is typically a grade above the vast majority of their peers. That's something that we're still working through. Obviously, for sixth grade students who are now going to be in a 6 to 8 facility, in a 6 to 8 school site, it will be easier for them to take courses that maybe seventh graders typically take. For fifth grade students, that's something that we are still working on. And for eighth grade students, obviously, it doesn't change much. And for fourth grade students, I would add kind of similarly to sixth grade students. For fourth grade students, they will now have access to those fifth grade learning spaces as appropriate and if needed.
Great, thank you. Can you discuss the plans for the middle school clubs and sports and after-school activities with the later dismissal time in the new school schedule?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I know that's something that we've been asked about. In the next school year for 24-25, middle school, I believe, will end at 3:45. Chris and I don't have those exact times right in front of me, but I think it's at 3:45. One of the questions we've gotten is how that might impact clubs and activities. There are a number of different factors. I mean, generally, we expect that, first of all, we will continue to offer a wide range of clubs and athletic opportunities for our students. Currently, this school year, we are only able to offer clubs and activities twice a week because of busing. Next year, we currently expect that we'll be able to offer clubs and activities 4 days a week, so that those late buses, those club and activity buses, will be able to provide transportation 4 days a week. We think that'll help spread out club and activity offerings. In terms of athletics, that's something we're looking at scheduling and to see if there are any adjustments that need to be made to athletic scheduling. There are other school districts that have very similar school start and end times at the middle school level. Like now, there may be times where there's an away game that's a little farther away, where student athletes may need to leave school a little early. We expect and hope that that will be the exception, not the rule. But those are things that we're looking at. But generally speaking, again, we expect that we will be able to continue to offer a wide range of clubs, activities, and athletic opportunities for students.
Great. So we have a question about the middle school's use of swing space. So we know that it'll be used as swing space for, the actual middle school. Once that Woodbury is completed, 2 elementary schools at a time, and once the elementary schools are completed, can you talk a little bit about what happens after the elementary school renovations are completed, and if the passage of a high school bond is impacted on that, is pretty much what this question is asking.
I'll try to answer the question as best as I can. Currently, we expect the middle school to be used for swing space for the duration of segment 1 of the master facilities plan. So that includes, as Kristen mentioned, that includes for grade 6 to 8 students, and then for elementary students. Once all the elementary buildings are built, we expect, currently our plan is to demolish the middle school. We are working with our partners at the city and in our community to think about what the future of that site will include. We expect that it will include some of the school district athletic space, because we will still need some athletic spaces at the middle school. And I know the city is in the process of a recreation study that includes the middle school site. So that may also be something that we look at. This is talking, kind of 6 to 10 years down the road, so we still have some time to figure it out. At this point, based on the plans we currently have, we do not anticipate using the middle school site as swing space for segment 2 of the facilities plan, which is related to the high school. Obviously, there are a lot more plans and decisions as it relates to the high school that we have to work through. So that's what I can share right now at this point.
Okay, thank you. So we have a resident here who does not have children in the school any longer and is asking about how we're informing parents of the plans, specifically Fernway, and how Fernway parents are being informed of the plans there. Can you talk a little bit about what those communication channels look like with parents?
Sure. Well, we have regular communication that goes out to all parents. That goes out district-wide and includes our weekly newsletter, which also connects to the facilities plan, facilities updates that we provide. Um, Buildings also share information regularly with parents. Fernway, for example, has a newsletter that goes out as well to parents. So that's how they get information. There are also opportunities for parents to speak directly with school administrators, kind of whenever they would like, and to reach out to school administrators. So those are a number of the different ways that parents can continue to be informed and engaged in this process. As it relates specifically to Fernway, we know that Mr. Hayward and other school administrators and district administrators are helping make sure that Fernway families are in the loop on the decisions we're making.
Right. And then we have a question about before and after school care, a concern that it tends to fill up a little quickly. So with the expansion, not with the expansion, excuse me, with the change in the day, with it starting a little bit earlier, they get out earlier. Are there plans to expand that program or attempt to?
Yeah, we're talking with our partners at Champions about the impact that the school start and end times may have on demand for before and after care. We hope that if, there is an increased demand, that we're able to accommodate that. We do know that these programs have been popular up until now, and we expect that to continue to be the case, and we'll do our best to meet that demand, to provide this support for families.
Okay. Well, that is it for all of the questions that are in the chat currently. We
I
do
was able to pull up this slide.
Yeah.
I may as well just share it. It's from an old deck, so it has some information that may be a little out of date now, but if you can look at the accelerated timeline, you'll see that if a student is currently in grade 4, let's say, they would stay in their elementary building for grade 5. They will have grade 6 at the middle school. It is possible that they will be able to move back in to Woodbury at some point during the 26-27 school year. You'll see that at this point is TBD. Once we have an architect on board and a construction firm, we should be able to start becoming a little more defined in terms of our expected renovation and construction schedule. So this slide includes some of the information for kind of different students depending on what grade they're currently in and where we would expect them to be over the next few years.
Great. And we actually did get one more question that came in. Can you talk a little bit about security? Will there be any upgrades to security during the transition and also after it's complete?
So certainly one of our priorities in the renovation process and in the modernization process is upgrading and updating our buildings to modern safety and security standards. So we certainly expect that as buildings are renovated, we will be upgrading the security and safety infrastructure that exists in our school buildings. An example that we often talk about is the Fernway school entrance and how visitors enter the Fernway building and how that is different from the way visitors enter our other school buildings. We expect that as buildings are renovated, that the entrance vestibule will look a lot more similar to Fernway than our other buildings. In terms of other safety and security upgrades for our buildings prior to renovation, there is certainly a cost factor that we look into. We're trying to balance continuing to maintain our buildings while also knowing that there are more significant upgrades that are coming down the pipeline pretty soon. That is true both for safety and security upgrades as well as just regular maintenance. There's lots of things that our buildings, which are pretty old, need. And so we are making decisions all the time about things that we need to do right away as compared to things that we can hold off on until building is renovated. And we'll continue to apply that lens to our decision-making moving forward.
Great. Now that is the end of the questions. I just wanted to add the next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, February 28th at noon. we will be putting that in our weekly e-news and also our facilities update. And it will be posted to the website, which, as I mentioned earlier, shaker.org/facilities plan. This recording will also be located there.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you for asking your questions and sharing your ideas. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you soon.